I'm recording this. View. Okay. Okay, good. Um, all right. So you can hear me, and I'm recording this on audio. And
Okay.
I am also, just as a backup, I'm also running something else here as just a redundancy. I can't tell you how pleased I am that you're able to spend some time with me today. I know how busy you are. You're wearing a lot of hats. I mean, you have a lot going on in your life, Tommy. You're originally from Streeter. You've worn some pretty impressive hats along the way. Coach of the IVCC basketball team and athletic director as well. Cancer survivor, broadcaster, public speaker, podcasts, and a whole trivia concept. So tell me a little bit about, if you could, how you came to find time and find yourself writing a book about the ill-fated winter dance party of 1959 and the four people killed in the plane.
I visited the memorial site in the surf ballroom in September of 2022 on a road trip vacation with my mother and sister. And when we went to the memorial site, I thought there was something there like a vibe. I wouldn't say it was anything that was moving. And then we made the 5 mile trek to the surf ballroom, which has pretty much been left as it was in 1959. And when we walked in the door, my life changed. There was something about walking in that place that resonated with me that I've still to this day been unable to explain, but it made me get to the point to where I wanted to know more about this story. So I'm a big researcher. I don't claim to be a writer, but I'm a huge researcher. And I did a podcast about it in 2023 on February 2nd. And that podcast kept coming up in my analytics like the top three for well over a year. I'm like, well,
You're onto
if the
something.
yeah, if the people really are that interested in the story, I have so much information, I'll give them a follow-up podcast, which was the whole idea.
Wow. Good
And
for
I
you.
started putting in an outline before I knew it. I had so much information, I decided, you know what? I got to do something that I don't like to do, and that's right. And I decided to write a book.
Well, you write very conversationally, as you say in the book. You're a researcher and not necessarily a writer. You say in the book that that's partly because you see yourself as more of a researcher. So what all went into putting this thing together?
I filed for the Freedom of Information Act with the Civil Aeronautics Board, the NTSB, the Iowa FBI, the national FBI, to get everything I could possibly get my hands on about this story, from plane accident reports to autopsies to coroner reports to newspaper articles. The list goes on and on. The quail is fight large, and that's what started. Then from there, it was getting to people to understand who these artists are. Tom, it's amazing to me to this day that people that grew up in this era don't know this story, and they really don't know who the artists are, except for Buddy Holly was a rock and roller and Richie Valens did La Bamba, and that's about the extent of it.
It's remarkable because when you think of it, for the 2 years or whatever that they were on the scene, they changed rock and roll and pretty much gave us things, that influences we can still hear in music today.
100%. We would not have the Beatles. We wouldn't have the Stones. We wouldn't have Bob Dylan. We wouldn't have, the list goes on and on of the influences that these artists reached.
Let me ask you, the dance party was going to be stopping in Spring Valley on February 7th, 4 days after the plane crash. Instead, there were funerals that day. Um, and you're going to be in Spring Valley next week on Thursday to talk to us more about the book and what went into it. What can we expect to hear? Can we hear any kind of local connection when you're here? Or what is it exactly people can expect when they come to this event with you?
I mean, I'm going to mention that they played at the Les Buzz Ballroom and who could have performed that night, as I do have a list of artists that were pulled from other tours that filled in.
Mhm.
But I'm basically going to do about an hour presentation and let everybody know, first and foremost, who these artists were, about the winter dance party, about the plane, about the pilot, the weather forecast, what could have happened that night, what could have brought that plane down, the crash, the after effects, and their legacy. They're going to get an hour presentation that has been really well received everywhere I've gone. So I'm excited to do this presentation back at Spring Valley, which is right down the street from where I coach at IVCC. And then a couple days later, be back in my hometown of Streeter, and I haven't been back in the area in 7, 8 years. So I'm excited to get back to the area.
We're going to be glad to have you back. You were very impactful when you were here, certainly. You put us right in the plane that night. And when I say it was a page turner, I meant it. I mean, you put us in the plane in this book. And you talked to us about the struggle to get a loft after takeoff in this, and you put us in this dark, cold night with the wind blowing and the snow flying in scary detail. You sort of clinically describe how each crash victim was found. And you point out something I've heard once before, I think, but I had forgotten, in that a contributing factor in the plane crash, they believe, was that 2 out of the 4 people on the plane were in the wrong seats and knew it.
Yeah. And I believe, at least in my heart, Jerry Dwyer, who is the owner of the plane, went to his grave. He passed away from Alzheimer's, stating that he had information that proved the CAB report, which is a Civil Aeronautics Board report, incorrect. And they stated it was weather and pilot error. And I believe both of those to be true. But I also believe there was a weight and balance issue. And I think he had regret that either he allowed that plane to take off or he knew they were not in the right seats. And with that weather condition and a couple other factors, that plane should have not have been in the air.
Yeah, you talked about how he was furious when they were in the wrong seats, and I guess you were saying J.P. Richardson, the Big Bopper, is the heaviest of them, was supposed to be sitting up front with the pilot, and then Buddy Holly and Richie Valens in the back, but because Buddy Holly was a student pilot or an amateur pilot, he wanted to switch and sit up front, and he put the Big Bopper in back.
I believe so. So Buddy took some flying lessons in the fall of 1958 in Tetersburg, New Jersey. He wasn't certified or had a pilot license, but Buddy was the headliner and he was the main guy and he kind of called the shots. And I think, the Big Bopper having the flu and not feeling well and Richie Valens having a bad cold, they were kids. I don't think they have any thought about, oh, we need to sit here to balance this plane. I think they were told, and when they went outside, Buddy said, JP, get in the back. And JP's like, that's fine. I really don't care. And Buddy got in the front. And, the rest is pretty much, unfortunately, a tragic ending.
Small plane like that makes a huge difference. So that could have been one of the several contributing factors. It must have been scary to kind of put this whole thing together. But you also mentioned that you come to the defense of the pilot. I feel that you don't hear a lot of people talking about the pilot when they hear about this accident. Tell us a little bit about him. You say that pretty much universally he was regarded as a good guy. He just might have been a little out of his depth as a pilot.
Agree. Everybody that I talked to had nothing but good things to say about Roger Peterson. 21 years old, a kid who passed his written examination to fly off of instruments only, but failed the flying portion a couple times. So he was not certified to fly basically on instruments and got into a plane that he had done a few chartered flights with before, but not a plane he was real familiar with. He flew other types of aircraft at that time that were like 80% of the hours of his flying hours. And he gets in bad weather conditions, and all of a sudden has to rely on instruments that he's not certified to do. He's got 3 rock and roll artists on board. And I just think it was a very turbulent, commotional 3 to 4 minute flight because that's all that plane was in the air.
And some bad decisions along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, J.P. Richardson, the Big Bopper, was 28 and the oldest one in the plane.
Yes.
I mean, that's remarkable. The impact that these people had on the music industry. And you talk about how Waylon Jennings lost the coin toss.
No, it wasn't Waylon, and
Okay.
that's a misconception.
I'm
that
sorry.
has been
Yes,
put in
you
the
said it was a
movies.
misconception. I'm sorry. That's right. Go ahead and tell
Yes.
me about that.
Yeah, so the Bopper had the flu. Originally on that plane was supposed to be Buddy, Waylon Jennings, and Tommy Allsop because the Crickets had broken up. So the original Crickets weren't on that tour. The drummer had gotten frostbite. He was in a hospital in Michigan. He didn't even make the trip to Clear Lake, Iowa. And then Bopper comes to Waylon and says, "Can I have your seat?" Waylon said, "It's okay with me if it's okay with Buddy." Buddy then comes to Waylon and to verify it. Waylon says, "That's good." And I always tell everybody again, I talk about this in the presentation. Again, these were kids. And Buddy at 22 years old says to Waylon, "I hope your old bus freezes up," because they've been having nothing but problems with the bus. And Waylon responds back with, "I hope your old plane crashes." And I think that messed up Waylon Jennings for the remainder of his life. I believe that really turned to what Waylon had some problems with substance abuse and a lot of other things in his life.
Yeah, he was certainly was having a hard time later in his career when he was in the formative years too. I think of his career as he was becoming famous, but I can't imagine carrying that kind of baggage. And back in the day, they wouldn't have had something like counseling to help you with it. And he just sort of, I think, came out in his artistry and his music and everything else later on. Um, Tell me about how it was in that day, you think, that they were able to just pick up and do the tour the next day, no interruption. How do you do that?
There's an interview in the book I put in with Red Robinson and Bobby V, and I'll save that story for the presentation with Bobby V. But Bobby V put it best. That interview was done in 1986, and he said, I'm not sure in 1986 the show will go on. But in 1959, there was no question about it. The show was going to go on, and they had to perform that night of the crash, February 3rd in Moorhead, Minnesota. And Waylon Jennings stepped in and did Buddy's vocals. I mean, there wasn't even a thought about, hey, maybe we should cancel this tour. Maybe we should get these guys some counseling or some help. They just lost their best friends. There was nothing about it. It was, you're going forward. And they went 13 consecutive days
And
until the last day of the tour on February 15th that ended in Springfield, Illinois.
I think sometimes we might forget, you wearing today's glasses, that back in 1959, rock and roll was not really a lock on everything. It was young, it was popular with young people certainly, but it's not like the establishment would say, okay, let's give you a little. These guys were into making money and keeping the art going and keeping the music growing. And I guess that was just sort of the youthful mindset of it. Let's just keep pushing ahead.
I think so. I can't wrap my brain around Irvin Feld, who was the owner of General Artists Corporation, GAC, that put this tour together. In his right mind could have went, I just lost three of my top artists to a plane crash, but I'm going to make the remaining artists play that night. I can't wrap I just think anybody in their right mind would go, you know what, we got to cancel this tour. The tour's done.
Yeah.
But they pushed on.
So by the time it got to, the wounds were open, not raw, but open and raw on the 7th when the tour came to Spring Valley. How did that show go?
I don't know how it went. I haven't been able to find anybody who was at that show that night on February 7th. I haven't been able to find anybody who was at any of the shows past the 3rd. I did find some people that were at shows previously to the crash and people that were at the show the last night to surf and some people that are at Moorhead, Minnesota, but nobody that I've been able to verify or could tell me what it was like past that. February 3rd, the people that I spoke to just said, the show went on, but it was more of like people were there as a tribute to Buddy and Richie and the Bopper, and it wasn't. They weren't at the other shows, but they had to feel like the energy was a lot different, and I can imagine that everybody there was just probably somber and shocked, and trying to wrap their brains around what just happened less than 24 hours ago.
So that's where Spring Valley has a sort of a sad footnote in this whole story. Was the day that they were being buried was the day the concert went on in Spring Valley. But like I think a couple of them their funerals were on the 7th, or maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, so I would encourage everybody to seriously to come out if you can to on Thursday the 16th to the Spring Valley Community Center. It's at 111 East St. Paul Street in Spring Valley, and I'm sorry, the time on that is what time, Tommy?
6:30.
6:30 on Thursday, and it's about an hour or so, and you'll be signing copies of your book. And the book will be for sale there too. Some copies, maybe.
Yeah, I know that some people in Spring Valley have purchased some copies, and I'm going to bring some copies of my book with me, so I'm happy to sell those as well if they don't have a copy with them. I hopefully it's a good problem that we don't have enough books, but if not, we'll have some books for people to purchase.
That's nice. Let me ask you just a couple questions now, a little bit about your background and what put you in this place, because you're from here, and we love to talk to people who've gone on and done great things. So you were at IVCC as the coach and the athletic director. In a nutshell, how did you get to where you are now as this like super communicator of things?
I loved being at IVCC. I really did. When I was at IVCC, I couldn't imagine a future without coaching at IV or being the athletic director. It was all that I thought that I would ever do. And then some things changed, and it was time to make a decision to move on. And I had lived in Las Vegas before, so decided to come back. I won't lie, and I've told people this before. When I was shoveling snow one time at the end of March, I was like, I have a choice. I don't have to do this. I can go places where there's not shoveling snow. And I knew Vegas was one of them, and Vegas has had my heart for a long time. So I came back to Las Vegas and became the national scout director for Recruit Look, and I still do help college athletes or high school athletes get college scholarships. And then one day, a friend of mine that we were talking one day and just said, I know you have a radio background and you have a public speaking background for your cancer survivor stuff, but why don't you have a podcast? And I literally, Tom said, I don't have time for that. Well, long story short, I started this podcast, and I originally was supposed to start it in June of 2020. We had everything ready by the end of 2019.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, it was even announced, I had a line of our guest already lined up to record. And then when the pandemic hit, it just went forward. And I thought, I'll do this through the pandemic. It'll give me something to do. And then it just kept growing and growing. And then, to today, it's in 107 countries. And, it's mind blowing how many people listen to that podcast that I do with, interviewing people on their backgrounds in life.
Speaking of your background, what's your broadcasting background?
When I was in Las Vegas as a kid, it's now defunct, called National Broadcasting College. And after high school, I wasn't ready to go to college, to a 4-year school. So I enrolled in that, graduated from there, got into an AM radio station as a news guy, and then worked my way up to doing, some, I would say, some adult contemporary radio stations. And I was doing, midnight to 6, and then I was doing live remotes. And then when I went back to Illinois, I did a little bit of stuff with WSTQ for a short period of time. But then I got into mobile DJing and started DJing around the Illinois area and was doing weddings and bars and stuff like that. So,
Gotcha. One of the things that you have is the scouting practice too for Recruit Look. You're scouting director, national scouting director. Is that's still going on right now? That's sort of
yes.
like your day job among all.
Yeah,
these
basically, I call it my morning job now. Is
Okay.
it your day job? I'm like, no, it's basically my morning job. In the mornings, I'm strictly all in Recruit Look, and then once I get to the afternoon, I start getting into Shadows over Clear Lake, and then into my trivia stuff. So,
Well, I have to tell you, you have a real gift for communicating, and I'm sure it's all about all the different pieces of your life have come together and sort of distilled into this book. And it really is a very interesting read. And yeah, you're not a writer, but you are a storyteller, and it's really, really good to read. It's an easy
thank you.
one too. Yeah. Is anything else you want oh, you know what I wanted to ask you? What year did you graduate Streeter High?
I didn't graduate from
Oh,
Streeter High School.
okay.
So when I went to Streeter my freshman year, and
Okay.
then around Thanksgiving that time, my family moved to Las Vegas.
That's when okay. And you went to the broadcasting college out there then after.
Yeah, I graduated from Bonanza High School in '86 out here in Las Vegas.
Okay, gotcha. We're about the same age then. Okay. And so you've had sports and communications and everything else, and you've distilled it into this really interesting project. I encourage people to pick up this book. I got it on Kindle on Amazon because I didn't want to wait for the delivery. I wanted to read it right away, and so it's like a virtual page turner for me. But
Yeah.
it's an excellent piece of work, and I'm really happy that somebody from this area has told the story about something that in this area that's tied to such a seminal event. It's always talked about. I think a lot of people have heard things about it here and there, but they haven't really seen the close, the tie, but how the whole thing came together and was supposed to then come here. You gave the whole overview of the tour, and that's something I don't think a lot of people had. And it's
Yeah,
just
thank
really
you. I
interesting.
appreciate that. And one of I think an interesting fact for the people in your area is people in your area are very familiar with Veruki's restaurant.
Certainly,
And in their bar, they have the Winter Dance Party poster
I've seen
that
it.
was at the Les Buzz Ballroom. And I did some research and found out that it was sitting there, and said somebody that I know that it's there. They're like, no, I go there all the time. I'm like, you probably don't even know it's there.
I've seen it. Yeah,
And then they went back and like, I've walked by that thing, I don't know how many times.
because it's part of it. We just sort of know it happened. And but this is really some interesting backstory. So listen, I want to thank you for coming on with me. I want to be respectful of your time. I'm jealous that you're out in the desert. I lived in Orange County, so I know what you mean about shoveling snow. I can tell you that it's really great to talk to somebody who's from the area and done something so important. And I'm looking forward to meeting you at this event, at the event on Thursday. And I know a lot of people here are looking forward to meeting you too.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to come back and see everybody as well, and meet a lot of new faces that I don't know.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, hang on one second. So I have to ask you, did you know, do you know a guy named Randy Taylor?
Mm-mm.
He does like scouting thing. He's from this area too. And he does some scouting or something. So I didn't know if you knew him or not. But yeah, it's very interesting that you just have all the stuff that you've done. It's really, really interesting. I'm so glad you made time to talk to me today. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. When will this air? Because I know some people back there. I can post it.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is this is really good. I only have 10 minutes or so on a Sunday morning. So here's what I do. I boil it down into like a 10-minute video, and that gets posted on YouTube like on Saturday night. And the audio portion airs on the radio Sunday morning. We use some sound bites from this to air on the next week as we lead up to the 16th. So it's going to be like sort of reused and repurposed for different things leading up to the 16th.
Got it.
So it's going to be kind of out there. And I think we've got enough here that since I don't want to cut anything, that I don't have to. So I may just put this up there as a full-length video on our YouTube channel as well, so people can watch the whole raw interview if they want to, if you're okay with
Great.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And if you send me a link, I'll post it on my
You
socials as well.
you bet. Awesome. And I'll do that. It's usually like Saturday night before I post the thing, but definitely I'll send you a copy, a link.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, thank you for getting the book, and I
Oh,
appreciate the comments.
it's great. Thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person.
Sounds good. We'll see you next week.
See you later. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.